This episode of Trudge Report is brought to you by Accent Garage Doors. Operating in Palm Beach County, the Treasure Coast, and Brevard County, Florida, Accent Garage Doors is your most trusted and reliable source for all things garage doors. Successfully in business now for almost 20 years, Accent Garage Doors gives you the best quality materials and appliances, along with reliability, dedication, and professionalism at the best possible price. Plus, the owner is handsome and has the best Irish accent of anyone in all the land. Members of Trudge Report have personally used his services and give Accent Garage Doors 2 thumbs up and a 5-star review. We wouldn't go anywhere else for our garage door needs, and neither should you. Accent Garage Doors is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and will exceed all of your garage door needs. You can visit their website at www.accentgaragefl.com or call 772-337-7733 and ask for John. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome back to another episode of Trudge Report. This is a recovery-based podcast, but don't worry, if you are not sober or not ready to be sober, we talk about plenty of other things, including sports, trending topics, a good bit of nonsense, possibly Corey's ass, and a whole bunch of other things. My name is Shawn, and I am your host. I'm joined by my good friends and fellow trudgers, Bill, Corey, and Greg. Please remember to listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our videos will still be posted each week, so you can watch episodes on YouTube and Facebook, but as always, please be sure to download on your listening platforms. Remember to like and subscribe on all social media outlets with the handle @TrudgeReportPod. We are brought to you by Stella Mix Podcast Management and our wonderful producer and editor, Miss Janine Stella. Gentlemen, good evening. Nobody that's watching this or listening will ever be able to know, but as I was reading my intro, I believe it was Corey was editing the Google Doc and his name popped up in big pink letters right over what I was reading. But luckily, I've said this many times and I didn't need that. So we're here. Happy Monday. Let's start with you, Corey. Corey, again, anybody listening won't know this, but can you tell the audience what your name says tonight?
Oh, I forgot I did that. That says Stu Mocker. Who's Stu Mocker, guys? Who is it? I want to ask you guys.
I have no idea. Stu Mocker.
All right, Greg, please. Really?
I'm drawing a blank, dude.
Oh, he's one of the killers in the first Scream.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Stu, got it. He plays
Matthew Lillard.
Matthew Lillard. Yeah, great actor, by the way.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Very good. Well, how are you, Corey? Let's start with you. We'll just go right to you.
I'm good. God, I don't know. Look, I feel the pressure now. Well, for one, the Eagles beat the Browns. Sorry, Greg.
It's not
like it was. Yeah, I mean, it was. I don't know. It's hard to call it terrible because I feel like it's the best that the Eagles have looked recently, and it's still pretty pitiful. So there's that. But hey, a win's a win, I guess.
A win is a win.
So that
win is a win.
That was kind of garbage. Prayers up to all the people that literally lost their homes this past week in the tornadoes caused by the hurricane's outer bands, I guess. That was wild. Actually, after Bill sent pictures in our group thread, I took a drive down there because I was trying to get my kid asleep, basically, is what my objective was after a night at Flanagan's. And drove down there, and it is devastating. But prayers up to them.
Yeah, that for everybody listening, like Corey, Bill, and myself, there were some tornadoes literally, especially by my neighborhood, like literally just a couple miles away. All is good for the three of us. Our houses are okay. No loved ones, anything like that. But we do know people personally that lost their homes. I know someone from one of the groups that Corey and I attend, his in-laws who live right over here by me. They completely lost their home. They're okay, but their home is completely destroyed. So definitely keep all those people in your prayers. And my dad has a bunch of friends on the West Coast. So thank you for calling that out, Corey.
Yeah, man. It's crazy. It's crazy to see it in person. Lastly, I hope the Jets beat the Bills here. That'd be cool.
I don't want them. I don't want Aaron Rodgers to win.
Well, I don't like Aaron Rodgers either, but I definitely hate the Bills fan base. And
well, never mind. I'm not touching that.
Yeah,
I understand. I understand.
I mean, well, Bills Mafia. Tom Brady said it best in his roast. Like, how are you the Mafia? The hell is that? It's stupid. Just stupid. Although I'm coming from a fan base that says we're the Bird Gang. So anyway,
that is true.
How are you guys?
Bill, what about you? You go next, bud.
I'm good. Yeah, that tornado stuff was 5 blocks from the house, so it's definitely crazy. And a lot of people lost their lives as well. So definitely, our hearts are with those people as well. It's definitely not very far away. I think Fort Pierce, where one of those went through a mobile home. I'm doing good. I'm glad that you're allowed back in the house, Shawn. That the Ravens pulled it off. Greg makes another controversial trade in the fantasy league. We're all in an uproar. I may retire as commissioner this year. It might be the year. And I'm moving. So I've been working all day doing all sorts of crap, and I'm moving as well. So it's been a long day tomorrow. But I came here for the people because I'm a man of the people. Steelers win, I win, you win. 7th Super Bowl this year. It's coming to a theater near you guys. Besides that, it's not very it's pretty hard to be a Steeler fan these days. It's pretty hard when you're on top. That's all I'm gonna say. Back to you, Shawn.
Glad you were joining us. I know you got a lot going on. Glad you could make it. Wouldn't be the same without you.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
What's up, Greg?
Oh, nothing, man. Yeah, glad all you guys are okay. Glad that none of you guys were directly affected by the tornadoes and everything like that. But yeah, it was kind of like pins and needles for you guys and a lot of friends down there in Florida just watching it from up here, and then, of course, Jim Cantor always makes it seem way worse than it was, but it looked pretty crazy, especially when the tornadoes start ripping through, there. So yeah, prayers out to those people that were affected. Certainly those people who have family members that lost their lives and stuff like that. Mother Nature is no joke sometimes. I do want to address the quote unquote controversial trade that I made without diving too deep into it and opening up too many cans of worms. But basically, I don't know. You boys tell me. I've been decimated by injury. I have Nico Collins on my squad. Well, first off, my first overall pick was CMC, and we all know what he's done all year long and may not even touch a football field this year. So that's awesome. But yeah, Nico Collins gets put on IR this week, and I need some receiver help because I'm relegated to starting Jerry Jeudy at this point, and things ain't looking so hot in Cleveland as everybody well knows. So yeah, I made a trade. I traded away Caleb Williams, who was sitting on my bench and was going to sit on my bench. I understand he had himself a game the other day, and hats off to him for sure. But I was never going to start the guy. Aside from bye weeks, I was never going to start the guy. I have Kyler Murray. I have Baker Mayfield in a 2 QB league, and I traded him away. And maybe I traded him away for some bum receivers. Maybe I didn't. We'll see. Rashad Bateman had an okay day, and Tutu Atwell. If Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua don't come back healthy, he's still an every week target for Matt Stafford. So I don't see the trade being controversial at all. But when you're in a league full of prima donnas, or partially anyways, things get in an uproar and whatnot. So it's fine.
I gotta say, I don't hear the controversy in that as either.
Yeah.
That's why you're not in the league. Huh?
Here's what it all boils down to. Here's what it all boils down to is like 3 years ago, I had CMC. Once again, I was decimated by injury, and I made a trade with that guy right there in it, right? And I traded away CMC for Matt Ryan. Now, on paper, that sounds absolutely terrible, and it kind of was, except I needed a quarterback, and it was at the time before Matt Ryan was washed, and he was still slinging them in Atlanta. And yes, was it, like I said, probably not the best trade, but the league went into an uproar over it, and it was convinced that Bill paid me money on the side and that we were taking each other out for steak dinners, and there was all kind of collusion. So from that point forward, it's like anytime that Mark or Bill trade with Greg, it's an uproar because like
this isn't like
full of prima donnas.
So this isn't like a rule or something in the actual bylaws of the league. This is just for the fact
you can
that
trade with whoever you want.
That's what I mean. That you did it in the past, and people are coming back to
of course
recency bias
and
of that.
I 100% stoked the flames with the steak dinner thing because I had like a steak one day, and I was like, I'm taking this over to Greg's house.
Yeah, of course. I stoked them as well because everybody in the league was crying about it. So of course you
Why
got.
Why are they crying about?
But here's the thing.
What?
So here's the thing: is I'm the commissioner, and any trade that I would veto, I said this year I'm going to take it to vote because I would have vetoed the trade. I just didn't think it was a good trade because it's quarterback heavy league. No, it was close, but then we took it to vote, and some people just couldn't handle the outcome of the vote, which I'm glad it went to vote. Let the people speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And certain people just got so upset about it that they just, we have yet to go a year in this 9-year of this league that someone was not threatening to fight another person. And honestly, it's it's a bit much. I was about to remove myself from the thread today. I'm like, this is out of control.
That league is I've speculated that league is single-handedly the reason why Shawn will not join a league. I could be wrong.
It's not the only reason, but it's damn sure don't want to be a part of that.
Right.
For sure.
Imbeciles.
Well, my brother-in-law's in there.
The only reason. It's definitely not the only reason.
So yeah, that I don't want to take up too much time with our fantasy league because it already takes up enough time out of my day. But certainly, I don't see the controversy in it. I do, however, see the controversy in the Cleveland Browns organization. Hats off to your Eagles, Corey. Congratulations on scoring 20 points. It certainly wasn't the best you guys have looked this season. Saquon really couldn't break anything off. I will absolutely give credit where credit's due. That catch by AJ Brown at the end of the game was a thing of beauty, man. And there's 90% of the receivers in this league that aren't making that catch. That's not going to be necessarily a highlight reel OBJ one-handed catch type deal, but that thing was beautiful, and most receivers would not have the awareness to be able to catch it. So hats off to that dude. Hats off to Speedy Devontae Smith. He got away from us, man. But yeah, it's just we're pathetic. The fact that our coach is continuing to, I think it's because of it's got to be from pressure from the owners continuing to trot Deshaun Watson out there. I'm telling you what, we got 3 games at home, and even with the return of Nick Chubb next week, even with the how great the defense has been playing, they're going to boo him out of the stadium. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I already went to a game where the whole stadium was chanting, "We want Jameis." Nobody has faith in the guy. The team doesn't have faith in the guy. I'll say it over and over again. It's a bad experiment gone horribly.
It's a good day in Pittsburgh when Cleveland fans are sharing, "We want Jameis."
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it is. And now there's talks of them blowing it up and trading Myles Garrett and stuff like that. So.
Dude,
Myles Garrett was
easy call.
Yeah,
he was good yesterday.
It's almost like the ownership wants the fan base to hate them. It's almost like they're making that excuse for us at this point. So we'll see. Hey, at least we got the Tribe. We're losing 4-0 to the Yanks.
I was just gonna say that. At least you got your Indians.
We got the Tribe. I get to see my good friend Danny P, who's coming up for a game this week. Nice. Yeah, so that should be fun, man. I love being the underdog in the ALCS, and should be a fun few games to watch. So
very good. All right, so we're going to continue with this spooky season topic, and we've got a couple different directions we're going to go with this. Greg, if you don't mind, I want to do my piece. I'll just do my piece real quick, and then I'll let you get into it. That's cool. Yep. So I got permission to give him a shout out. My buddy Chris texted me today, and he's been catching up on episodes, and he was just he's actually pretty much caught up, but he was just listening to the episode where we talked about the torso killer in Ohio, which I believe that was last week. Didn't we mention that last week?
Correct.
But so I want to say something real quick, that this podcast, yes, we are a recovery-based podcast. This podcast does not reflect or associate itself with any views of any 12-step programs or any other specific recovery programs whatsoever. We're just four dudes in various forms of recovery that have all known each other a long time. So this podcast does not support any type of specific fellowship or 12-step program or any other type of recovery platform. But my friend Chris gave me some good history today, and he said that there's a speaker for a 12-step program. He's like a circuit speaker. His name is Clarence, that talks about the torso killer in one of his stories. And the torso killer was based out of Ohio. There is a certain 12-step fellowship. I want to say it's Alcoholics Anonymous, but I can't be certain on that. That roughly began in Ohio and probably New York, but that in Clarence's story, he talks about the guy who in a lot of the 12-step programs, they talk about sponsorship, and that his sponsor was one of the co-founders of this fellowship. And he actually believed that his sponsor may have been the torso killer, a guy named Dr. Bob Smith, because he was a doctor and he had surgical experience. And this was shared by not only Clarence, but a few other early AA members. I just think that's a wild piece of history. Chris said he said I'd give him permission to shout him out, and he was actually going to look up the tape and do some more research on it because he thinks he remembers hearing it in a couple other speaker tapes and a little bit more on that. Just a kind of a fascinating tidbit. I highly doubt it was, but just kind of one of those things. Well, that's pretty fascinating.
The timelines do match up. Number one, yep. And number two, who's to say that gentleman didn't get sober and stop killing, and that's why they just never caught the guy. I don't know.
It's a fascinating thing, and because that would have been in like the late 30s, early 40s, right, Greg? Correct. Would that be around the same time?
Correct.
So
yeah, it was in the mid to late 30s,
and that is the time frame that the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous started. So that's a pretty cool thing, and just something we'll keep tabs on. And
and the killers certainly, like they say in the book that I have and that I've read, it was kind of before the time of FBI profiling and stuff like that, but they've all said and agreed upon that the killer, most certainly, if it wasn't a doctor or a surgeon, had plenty of surgical, and it wasn't like a butcher. It was surgical experience because of the precision used and everything.
So fascinating stuff. We'll keep tabs on that.
Way to break the hearts of roughly 2 million people. Unreal.
Well, listen, just a fascinating tidbit there. I just thought that was interesting. So I know a little bit about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. So when he shared that with me, it was just kind of interesting. And who knows if it's true, but it makes for good content. That's what we know.
We're gonna get canceled.
Yeah, I doubt it. I think if we were going to get canceled, it would have been something already that we've talked about way before that.
3 viewers.
Way before, yeah. All 3 viewers, but
yeah.
All right, so Greg, this was the week I was traveling, but we talked about it last week. It was mentioned that at the end of your spooky segment a couple weeks ago that you buried the lead pretty good on some haunted house stuff that you may have lived in. So we want to give you that platform to re-explain that to the people because they want to know. They've been asking.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, it was an information heavy episode, and I didn't really think to mention it in there, and definitely don't want to steal the spotlight of the Warrens, but yeah, it's something the spooky hauntings and stuff like that I have firsthand experience with, and if you believe and subscribe to that kind of thing, you're with me. If you don't, you'll definitely think I'm full of shit, and that's okay. Yeah. So when I was from the age of right around 1 to 4, we lived in a home. The home was purchased by my grandmother, who owned several properties around the Cleveland area, but she purchased this home and rented it to my mom. It was my mom, myself. My dad lived there for a little bit before he split, and then not haunting related, but more personal related. And a good family friend, who I refer to as my Aunt Kathy, lived there with us as well. And she was kind of acted as kind of like a live-in nanny too, for me and my sister while my mom worked. But yeah, so this was an old Victorian house. It was built in 1901, and it's at 6116 Franklin Boulevard in Cleveland, in the suburb or neighborhood of Ohio City. There's a lot of historical homes there. The actual street, or that section of street, is what's called the Old Millionaires Row, because during the turn of the century there was a lot of affluent people that lived there, and it's actually right down the street from what most people say is the most haunted building in the state of Ohio, which is Franklin Castle, which, like I said, that's a couple blocks down the road. That was built in the late 1800s, and it is it's one of those houses, if you guys know your serial killers and stuff like that, it's kind of like similar to like the H.H. Holmes murder house. It's full of tunnels and secret passageways and hidden rooms and hidden chambers and stuff like that. It's kind of an architectural marvel. But it was also said to be haunted by multiple ghosts. It was a secret meeting place for German spies during World War II. So like Nazi spies would meet there, and they're said to have, rumor anyway is like performed occult rituals there and things like that. So, but yeah, that one's right down the street. But yeah, so the house I lived in, and spent the first 3 years, when we moved in, and a lot of this is secondhand. I don't remember. I remember bits and pieces, like how everybody does of their childhood. I can see like pictures in my mind or remember certain situations, but nothing fluidly. But yeah, when we moved in, it's a great big house. It's got 3 levels. When you walk in, there's like a foyer that leads up. There's a stairway that leads up to a landing, big stained glass window. It's very, very much like a Victorian house. And I think pretty soon after we moved in, there started to just be weird stuff that occurred there. I remember, there'd be times where we'd come home, like my mom would pick us up from school or daycare or whatever from my grandparents' house when she was working. She would pick me up and come home, and she would be super freaked out because there would have been nobody in the house for hours, but there'd be water running, or there'd be a bathroom would be completely fogged up with handprints on the mirrors, like somebody just got out of the shower in there, that kind of stuff. And
that's creepy, dude.
She talked about
why was this ghost putting his hands on the freaking mirrors?
I don't know, man. It's
all right, guys, I'm out. No, I'm just
not very much couth from the ghosts around there.
Get your damn mitts off of there.
Are we sure Grandma wasn't just senile?
No, that was my mom.
Or okay, well,
and she was in her early or mid 20s at that point, so I don't think she was quite senile yet. But
okay, I've met Greg's mom, and she is.
Don't you dare, Shawn.
She's of sound mind.
She's another Suzanne, right?
This Aunt Kathy character, though, I don't know.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so my mom would claim to have seen things a lot, like where there would be just shadows, there would be things move around on their own, or she would see like things. She said often what would happen is a lot of times she would be cleaning or coming out of the living room into the main area of the house, and she would look up, and as the sun would come through that stained glass window, she said often she would see the silhouette of a woman in a big, poofy, large, like Victorian
style dress.
Yeah. And it would be there for a couple seconds and then just go away. So yeah, things started to get a little weird. Like they never claimed to have any like really bad experiences, but just that like the only place that they really felt very creeped out and very ominous and not good was in the basement. And if you can imagine the basement of a home that was built in 1901 and not really renovated then in the early 80s, you know, it's just an old dank basement, you know. And they claim just to not get good vibes down there. My dad, on the other hand, spent a lot of time down there, so I can tell you exactly about the kind of person that my dad was. But rest in peace. But
Peace.
But yeah, so he spent a lot of time down there. But I guess
The
like
ghosts were scared of him, is what you're saying?
maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, so when I started to talk, you know, and form words and stuff like that, my mom said pretty quickly, I started to kind of talk and have conversations with someone named George, and she always just assumed it was an imaginary friend, right? Like that kids have, and you know that I would play with this person, and you know, and she just thought it was the imagination of a young kid. Until I kept talking about him, and I would say things to her like, you know, she'd have me on the changing table, and I'd be looking over her shoulder, talking to this person, and she would say things like, you know, who is George? Where is he? What does he look like or whatever? And I would say things like creepy stuff like, oh, he's the old man that lives in the corner right there, and you know, and things like that. And I guess they started to get pretty weirded out by it. We did have a couple instances occur that like really freaked them out. One time I was standing on a folding chair with her in the kitchen. The folding chair was propped up against the counter. She was icing a birthday cake, and I was up there just watching her. And
whose birthday?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know if it was when my sister was an infant and maybe it was her first birthday, or somebody else's. I don't know. But I was standing watching her ice this cake, and like I said, the chair was propped up against the counter, and then inexplicably the chair folded itself up on my legs, and I came down and whacked my head like on the counter and had to go get stitches from it. And then the craziest part was one day when my mom was at work, and I believe I was 2 at this time, 2, almost 3 years old maybe, and I was there with my aunt. In the house, the way it was set up is like I said, you'd walk up the stairs, the first set of stairs to a landing, and you'd walk up another set of stairs into the second floor of the house, and then a third set of stairs went up to the attic, and it was a full attic. There was like 6 or 7 rooms up there, just different sectioned off areas. And so the staircase, like you could look down from the railing of the attic.
Oh, that's creepy, dude.
All the way down to
creepy.
The bottom floor of the house. And my aunt said, you know, she had me up there with her. She was cleaning, moving some stuff around. She said she literally took her eyes off me for what seemed like 2 seconds. And when she looked back, I was balancing on the railing. And when she went to go grab me, I fell. And I fell all the way down. So two stories essentially. And when I hit up against the cast iron radiator. You guys know what do you remember any houses?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. I know
that
my
was
dad
a cast
had one.
iron radiator, right? I hit that and I bounced into the wall where there was literally like a human impression in the wall, right? And my aunt, like she says to this day, she's like, I thought you were dead, right?
So she's saying that the ghost saved you essentially?
Well, here's the thing, yeah, because I got
patted your fall.
I got to the hospital and I didn't have a scratch, I didn't have a bruise, I didn't have any broken bones, nothing was wrong with me.
They do say that young kids and drunk people, they fall the best because they're nice and limber. So
right. Yeah, I mean it like I don't know.
That's wild.
You know, that's the thing is it's just unknown, but certainly major cause for concern with my mom and the family and whatnot. So they started looking back at the records of the home, those that were available at that time. Because again, like I said, we're talking about the early 80s here. But they were able to find, like I said, the house was built in 1901. and the man who built the house and died in the house was named George. And
they didn't know that before you started talking. When you were talking to George,
no,
they didn't know that.
Nobody knew that. Nobody knew that.
That's sick.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That
one of the two.
He died in the house. His daughter died in the house. It is
How did he die?
That she died. I believe he died of old age, like natural causes. But his daughter died young in the basement.
Victorian dress lady, maybe.
How'd she die in the freaking basement?
We're talking about, stories from the teens, so, and like trying to find even newspaper articles on that stuff from that long ago. It's difficult.
If you die in a basement, it's sketchy. Something
no matter.
Yeah, I would say so. So. Yeah.
So you had 4 stories to this house, essentially. Basement
yes.
plus that. That's crazy. I mean, I know
it is. I can send pictures of it. Maybe we can get some pictures to post in post.
That'd be cool.
So we moved out of that house, not right away because of that by any means, but eventually moved out of that house. My grandma was getting ready to sell it. So the funny story is we came back in we just came to town for a visit in I would say like mid to late 90s. I was a teenager, I know that. But we came back for a visit, and like always, when my mom came back for a visit, she used to love to drive around and show us all the little cool places in Cleveland and whatnot. And we went back by the house. We were driving by, and she's like, "Oh, we should get out." And we got out, and the house looked beautiful. It had been painted on the outside, looked very nice. And so she's taking pictures of it, and just so happens that the people that lived in the house came home and to find this lady and her kids standing in their yard, and she's taking pictures of their house. So they're like, can I help you or whatever? And then, so my mom's like, we used to live here. And the lady was very cool, very welcoming. She said, "Hey, do you want to come inside, see what we've done with the place?" We're walking around. We're looking at,
And she said, "This is my husband, George." No, just kidding. That'd be pretty cool.
But my mom said, she's like, "So do you ever have anything strange or anything like that happen?"
Oh, she didn't, dude. Just freak those people
the lady,
out.
No. The lady literally looked at her and goes, "Oh, you mean the ghosts?" And it was just like one of those moments where all the hair on the back of your neck stands up. Like, dang. So these people are living through it too. In 1990,
we should get them on the pod.
I don't even know who they are anymore. They were renting the house or they sold it. If they owned it and sold it, they sold it to a guy named Robert Bourbon, who turned.
They may not even have been real, Greg. They might have been spirits.
They could have been.
You don't know, dude.
It could have been our boy George from Shamokin too. You never know.
Yeah.
Isn't it like a B&B now or something, Greg?
So it was. So that's So in the late 90s, a guy by the name of Robert Bourbon, who was an entrepreneur, bought the house.
Great name, by the way.
And he turned it into the Bourbon House, right?
Mr.
So he put
Bourbon.
a bunch of money into renovating it and turned it into like a bed and breakfast, right? And there were and still are, like, and that's the thing, is if you look up Bourbon House Cleveland, you can see the stories that I'm telling you are corroborated. It's not, just hey, I'm trying to spook everybody out for Halloween, but yeah, there were reports of it being haunted, and guests overnight experiencing strange things and whatnot. Nothing I can find so far of being like caught on tape or anything like that, but the house still stands. Robert Bourbon does not own it anymore. It's not a bed and breakfast anymore. I believe he sold it in 2009, and then it was sold again in 2021. So there's a private owner. I don't necessarily want to go just start knocking on their door, but maybe I will. Maybe if enough.
It's for the pod.
If enough
Take a video
interest,
camera.
yeah. We can document it for the pod.
Dude, wait till Danny's with you. Danny P will do it.
Yeah, I know he will.
He'll do it in a heartbeat.
and he'll make friends with the owner. He'll probably give him some tips for their trim.
No,
and
dude, yeah, we
drywall
can.
and
Hey,
shit.
I can take care of this drywall for you. And
Yeah. So yeah, that's
a cool
my
story.
my.
That's a cool story,
experience.
and
yeah,
I can't believe you kind of buried that, but I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
Very good.
I have a question. When is the last time you spoke with this George?
Oh, when I was a
have you
kid.
kept in touch? Oh,
when I was a kid, man. No, we don't write. He used to send Christmas cards, but yeah.
Also, your neighbor's name is George, and I think
is
he
correct.
might be a ghost.
That is correct. And well, George is not a ghost. As yeah, I haven't seen him for a couple days, but as far as I know, George is still doing his thing. I have a neighbor who is in his late 90s, and this guy is, I mean, he is just a champ with mowing the lawn, man. This guy takes pristine
he
care
goes
of
to
his
town.
lawn. And he
is that the house, Corey? Corey just put up a picture of the house.
I did, and
in our group
you can
chat
just
here.
tell by looking at it that thing's haunted.
Oh, did you put up a?
Well, he put it in the chat, so we'll have to see if
so
our
yes,
producer can put
the house.
a quick picture of it up anytime during this segment, just to put a picture up. But it is a creepy looking house.
Yep, it is. It is a beautiful house, man. But
I'm sure it
is.
was. I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Different.
So yeah, that's my experience. I mean,
Nice
I've had a couple other it's hard to say sometimes. I spent the night in Shawshank prison or Mansfield prison
Dude.
once, and that was pretty cool.
On purpose?
Yeah, like they do like a guided ghost tour thing, and I
Like
didn't see anything.
Like in high school when we were in elementary school, we were like lock in.
Yep, they lock you in, and but what I will say is when they take you down into like the bowels of the prison where the electric chair and solitary confinement is or whatever, like
There's
I
definitely
didn't
some spirits down there.
I didn't
dude.
see anything, dude, but like I could feel that the vibes were no bueno, and I wanted to get the hell out of there. So, yeah.
Damn, that's pretty good. It reminds me of that. There's a book, and they made it into a movie. Great movie, by the way. It makes me cry at the end. Odd Thomas. There's a book by Dean Koontz called Odd Thomas. Great book too. I read the book first, but they made a movie, and it's an Amazon Prime movie or whatever it was. I don't think it really made it big in theaters, but great movie. And it's about, Odd Thomas, the guy who he basically sees dead people. He sees, and it's just, it's a real, I thought it was a great movie. It's very sad at the end, but that stuff always reminds me
that's
of
that was that dude's final movie too. He passed away.
Yeah, dude. I forgot about that. He died.
Anton Yelchin or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. And he was a fairly decent size actor, pretty big. He was in a lot of stuff, but did you read how I looked it up actually.
A car rolled him over, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But nobody was in the car. It was literally like his own car, I think, or something like that, where he was in a driveway and the parking brake, whatever, on a slope, it gave out and it pinned him between like the wall of the house and just, that's some weird stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody fact check his name real quick, just so we make sure.
His name's Anton Yelchin.
Yelchin. So not to be confused with, or no relation to Christian Yelich of the Milwaukee Brewers, but
I share a birthday with him.
Anton Yelchin or Christian Yelich?
Christian Yelich.
The baseball player. Nice.
Yeah.
Quick, Corey, what position does he play?
I don't know. He bats.
What position did he play this year?
Sixth base.
He was injured.
Well, he sucks then.
So very cool. All right. Well, let's
that is cool.
Anybody got any other comments on the spooky stuff? That's pretty cool, Greg. Thank you.
But if anybody's listening, I'd like our viewers to share stories if they got them with us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, send them in. Send them into our many different platforms.
Love to hear that kind of stuff.
I can tell you guys some stories about East Liberty in Pittsburgh. Spooky.
Those might incriminate people, Bill. I don't know if we want to hear this. I don't know if the statute of limitations are up on
I'll save them for another episode.
We'll have to make up like fake names and fake situations, but like Law and Order does. They're not based off any real person or events, but they're modeled after stuff that happened.
Dramatization. Got it.
Okay, so sticking on the metaphysical of things, we're going to do another meditation spiritual reading tonight. I brought the reading tonight. We're going to also have this for those of you that will watch this episode. The reading will be flashed up on the screen here in just a moment whenever I am reading it. This is from my Emmet Fox book, Around the Year with Emmet Fox. It's a daily meditation reading, 365 readings. All the guys here know that I love Emmet Fox. Corey's into. We've all actually been into him at various points in our life. We've done some studies on him, and he's got a lot of different books. great spiritual teacher in the early 1900s through the 20s and 30s and even into the 40s, I think. Really made a profound impact on stuff overseas, but especially like here in America, specifically the Northeast, but he did travel across the country. And this is by far my favorite reading. It's something that the guys and I joke about a lot, and Corey and I have we've had a lot of good laughs on this, so it was kind of no surprise that I was going to pick this. So it's called "The Captain is on the Bridge," and it's from September 5th. It's a September 5th reading. The captain is on the bridge. It says, "The world is not going to the dogs. The human race is not doomed. Civilization is not going to crash. The captain is on the bridge. Humanity is going through a difficult time, but humanity has gone through difficulties many times before in its long history, and has always come through strengthened and purified. Do not worry yourself about the universe collapsing. It is not going to collapse. And anyway, that question is none of your business. The captain is on the bridge. If the survival of humanity depended upon you or me, it would be a poor outlook for the great enterprise, would it not? The captain is on the bridge. God is still in business. All that you have to do is realize the presence of God where trouble seems to be, to do your nearest duty to the very best of your ability, and to keep an even mind until the storm is over." And then he always either starts or ends with a Bible verse, and this is from Psalm 119, verse 165. "Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them." So, one of my favorite readings, excuse me, I think it came about many years ago, oddly enough, or ironically enough, when we had a hurricane coming through. This is probably what, Corey, 8 years ago by now, 7, 8 years ago. And, Corey was, freaking out a little bit, or at least he was,
I was totally not.
He was freaking
you were
out.
Projecting other people's feelings onto me.
Is that how I don't remember that, but it kind of became this like running joke in a good way that the captain is on the bridge, meaning we're all going to be fine. We'll kind of all will and pray the storm not to direct hit us. I want to say it was Matthew, actually, Hurricane Matthew, that one that was supposed to make direct landfall and literally just stayed right off the coast and did not make direct landfall. Therefore, clarifying my point that the friggin' captain is on the bridge.
It was
and he
Dorian.
Still is. Okay.
Yeah. 2019.
Dorian Gray. But really, really and truly, I love that because, like, listen, it's no secret that there is a lot of weird stuff going on in our world right now. But kind of like the reading says, humanity's gone through this before. I'm sure, if you pick any point in history, the Watergate scandal, the JFK, you just pick points of it. Yeah, they might be slightly different today, and maybe we're not dealing with the exact same thing, but in a way we kind of are. I mean, history doesn't repeat itself. That's impossible, but history is a paradigm, right? It kind of like similar things kind of happen over and over, so even though it always, what I talk to guys about is that whatever's currently going on in our world today that we're freaking out about, it's because it's happening to us, or it's happening in our lifetime, and we are dealing with it. And, all of us are kind of grown-ups now, and we either all have kids ourselves, or homes, or professions, or families to look after, homes to look after. Like, we have a stake in what is going on in the world, obviously politically, socially, economically, all that stuff. So it always seems like, the worst is happening, but it's only because it's happening as we are experiencing it in real time. And, that reading of remembering that God is in charge, not just of my own life, which is first and foremost. I have to remember that God is my employer, right? I am his agent. He is my father. I am his child. I am an instrument of his peace, a soldier for his good, however you want to say it, that he's in charge of my life. But more importantly, like, he is watching over the world and humanity and all its people. And there's we can get into those conversations about why do bad things happen and stuff like that. Why did the storm, Hurricane Milton, all that stuff. And to be honest with you, like, I don't have the answer or like anything to comfort those people that might be skeptical and say, well, what about this or what about that? I just know what I believe, and I know what I've experienced in my life, literally being saved from like a living death and a physical death in many different forms. And, kind of on the point where Greg was talking about, like, all these kind of crazy things, these metaphysical things happen. Like, I've had some pretty wild spiritual experiences throughout my sobriety. And then obviously if I go back to the times prior to sobriety where I probably shouldn't have made it out alive, or at least not in one piece, or not in jail, or whatever the case may be. And I always did. And then the last part of that reading that I really like is that, if it were up to you and me, man, we'd all be in deep, deep trouble if it was up to any one specific individual. And I just always have to remember that. And it's a reading that, if nothing else, it just gives me comfort, and it makes me not have to try and control the situation or feel like I have to do anything except for what inherently I already know are my responsibilities and my duties, and the stuff that God has tasked me with specifically. Right. So it's a good reading. We'll have it flashed up. People can read it. Emmet Fox, Around the Year with Emmet Fox, for September 5th. You can actually look them up on YouTube. There's this wonderful, wonderful Jamaican lady. Her channel is called Alinonis, and she like reads the Emmet Fox readings and like breaks them down. So if you don't have the book, you can just look them up that way on YouTube. So it's pretty cool.
Can I go next?
Yep. Go ahead, Corey.
Sweet. Yeah, good stuff, Shawn. And that reading is good. It's always been good. And yeah, when that, like you said, when I first discovered that reading through you, basically, we did have a hurricane coming at us, and it was kind of a reassurance at the time to like kind of stay put. I will say that if I'm correct and it was Hurricane Dorian, we got lucky, quote unquote, because like the storm like stopped, a few miles off the coast or whatever, and started going north. It wasn't supposed to. I decided to stay. My family was actually in New Jersey, so it was just me. I wasn't too worried. But I woke up the next morning and it was like the most beautiful weather I've ever seen in my life. So that was cool. But I will say that the captain being on the bridge does not mean don't put your shutters up. Because God gave us resources.
Good point. He gave us brains to use too. Good point. Good
point. God gave us brains to use, right? I like how you talked about like the current state. Well, not so specifically, but like the current state of our society today. I'm so guilty of being like, oh my God, we're screwed because this or that's happening in the world. Listen,
no, I've never heard you say anything like that.
One thing's for sure is watching the news isn't always the most healthy thing you can do with your day. But, and not that we definitely don't get political on this podcast, but like to your point, and Shane Gillis actually said it, the comedian Shane Gillis, he talked about like how people would be like, he talked about how people would be like, oh my God, we're so divided today. And it's like, well, we had a war in the 1860s that was pretty divided. You know what I mean? Like, we had the Holocaust that sucked. You know what I mean? Like, bad things have happened. We've probably been worse in society and the world in general. I mean, I know that there's genocides happening in different civilizations today anyway, but I'm just saying it's all happened. History does repeat itself. It just takes different shapes and forms, whatever. So you're right. Like it's about recognizing that quite literally the captain's on the bridge. God has control, whatever's going on. Really it's all according to the plan. Like, yeah, we have free will and stuff, and people use that, like humans use that negatively, but how can we say that, well, nothing happens in God's world by mistake, right? The one thing I do struggle with it at times is like, so for instance, the captain's on the bridge. It's all God's will. Just got to have faith in God. Okay, perfect. What I struggle with is like, I'm willing to bet that like somebody who lost their house this week had faith in God too. So it's like, I struggle with that. Like, what if God's will kind of sucks for me this week?
I do too, Corey. I actually had that conversation with two people on Friday night. Like Like, and I believe, and I have a strong faith. You guys know that. But man, that's a hard, like, or when we talk about like, oh, by the grace of God, there go I. Does that mean the other person wasn't graced and only I am? Like, I agree, dude. That's a tough.
We live that
conversation.
We live that every single day because we were the ones to date, at least as of October 14th, 10 o'clock, that we escaped addiction, so to speak, or at least the fatal outcome that
right.
so many come to, and our friends don't a lot of the time. Like, I definitely never have wasted much time sitting there and saying like, oh, but why was I chosen to live? Like, I'm not doing that. But if you think about it, it's like, man, how freaking lucky are we? Lucky or whatever, blessed, whatever you want to say, because yeah, plenty of people have had like faith in God, and you can point out they weren't doing A, B, and C that we know works for us, whatever. But nonetheless, it's important in our lives today to have that faith in God. And I like how it said, I'm going to wrap up with this. I like how it said, whenever there's trouble, like what you do is you recognize
claim God instead.
You claim God, right? Man, that's I've done that. I've seen problems disappear because of that. And at the very least, at least in that moment while you're doing that, you feel like you have some backup, you feel like you have something on your side. So, yeah, that's it.
That was good. That was good, Corey. I appreciate that. Real quick before we get to the other guys, to that point, Corey, about like, what about the people that lost their house or whatever, like their faith? I was just so funny you say that, because I think what I came to the realization with that, because I struggle with that too. Like, damn, that's the God I'm all loving, all power, all that stuff. I think my friend from our group, his in-laws that lost their house, the in-laws are okay. The people are physically safe. They lost their house. Like, I still think that's part of God's plan.
Yeah.
And I know that's like a tough whatever to bite. And our friend from our group, he's a very spiritual, religious man. I still think that's part of God's plan. I also think that it's okay that I, as a human, don't always have to be happy or content, or that God's plan isn't always easy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not all like everybody lives and nobody ever gets hurt and everybody's happy. There is, and I think that's still part of God's plan. Now, we can get into why that is, various reasons. I don't really know. I have some opinions, but I think that's where I net out at. And that, like, God, that's tough sometimes.
Well,
to know that, thing, but there is a plan,
The one thing I think we can say for sure, and we know this in our own experience, the worst things that have happened to us specifically, and the worst things that we've been through, what do we do with them? We use them to help others. That's so true. If nothing else, a tragedy like that may just be used to help somebody else one day. We don't know what the whole plan is, but
right. We can't say, and exactly. We're not supposed to see all that in the future either. So anyways, regardless, good share on that, Corey. I really appreciate that. Who wants to go next, Bill or Greg?
Oh yeah. I don't think that, I appreciate the shares. I mean, man can't interpret God's will. I mean, that's, if we could, we'd all be walking around the Garden of Eden. So to try to wrap my head around God's will is an attempt in futility. There's no way I could ever do that. I go through immense struggles. To have faith is to operate in my world, to believe in the afterlife. So somebody that is killed, well, if I have real faith, I believe that person is in a much better place than us. I mean, they're laughing at us. We're saying, oh, we're in good spots. We're okay. Like, they're laughing at us. I mean, they're sitting at the left hand of God. So I'm not really so worried about that, because I have faith in the afterlife in that process. You know what I mean? There are hard lessons to learn. I had a personal friend who I called. His wife left, and he's on Clearwater Beach. His wife left. He's on the first floor of a condo. Called him 2 or 3 times the day before the storm. I said, dude, my literal words were, dude, hop in your car, drive over here. I got an extra bedroom. We won't tell anybody. You could post like you're still there and be tough and like you held the fort down and said there's no shame in the game. but just be smart. Like, let's get out of here. No, I'm fine. I'm going to stay here, Bill, and I'm like, okay. So sure enough, the night of the storm, about 12 o'clock, I get a call and I can hear it in his voice. And he's got 3 inches of water in his entire first floor. He's got 3 feet of water outside of his door, and the water's 4 inches from his windowsill. And at that time, he starts talking about his flood insurance. And I go, don't worry about that right now. And then he starts talking about the real situation. I said, let's just talk about the flood insurance, actually. Let's get back to that, kind of to distract him from what was going on, right? I don't know God's will for that man, though. But I know one thing. I was able to offer him some solace. I talked to him. I asked him if we could pray together. I told him it's going to be all right. And I think he called me because he knows I'm a stable individual, and I have a belief and a faith in life and humanity and God most foremost. And sure enough, the next day, I stayed on the phone with him for well over an hour. First thing, text him in the morning, and he had called me and said he's okay. You know what I mean? And now he's still not accepting any help, but I love the guy. You know what I mean? And he's going through it. But you know what? That might be God's will for him. Death might be God's will for me tomorrow. I don't know that. I will live today like with this opportunity of the breath in my lungs, right? I'm going through a tremendous amount of pain in my own personal life right now. And all of a sudden the devil attacks from every angle, feeling the illusion of walls closing in, throw in the towel, man. Just, fuck it. Tell everyone to fuck off. You know what I mean? I don't do that. You know what I mean? Because I spent my weekend working on my relationship with God. I'll spend tomorrow morning working on my relationship with God. I will pray for the people who don't have this relationship because it saved my life. And essentially, whether I like it or not, the captain is on the bridge. And, I think that's a great reading for anxiety. It's more of a level 2 thing, because if I don't have faith, then I'm like, screw the captain. He ain't on no bridge. I'm on the bridge. I'm in control here. Right. So first I need to develop my faith. I need to believe that there is a God, which white light experience helped me with that. But if not, you can always study the math of the universe. That really helps me in times like that. When I start to doubt things like that, it is literally impossible for there not to be some sort of universal law that is divinely driven. And I find solace in that in myself. And that helps me with the belief of afterlife, and also helps me to understand how big this world is. And that for me to try to wrap my head around God's will is an exercise in futility. I just have no clue what God's will is. I know what the next right thing is. I know what it's like Corey said, to turn around and help that next guy whenever I'm hurting, because that will help me. So thanks for the reading, Shawn. Thanks for letting me share it.
Thanks, Bill.
What's funny?
I've heard you share that way before. Like, it was good. It was good. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I love this reading. I love you boys. I love this stuff. And what this all, like, I'm often reminded of something that Shawn's been saying for years, and it always like sticks with me, is that how's your program working at the breakfast table? And certainly, like with this, is like, where is my trust in God? It's great that I have a higher power. It's great that I'm developing that relationship through prayer and everything like that. But do I trust in that? Is the ultimate question. And I'm pretty sure that most of the readings from that book came from different excerpts of other books that Emmett Fox wrote, because I found a longer version of this, and with a paragraph in between, and I think it's just as important as the rest of the reading. But it says, when you went to Europe on one of the great ocean liners, you never worried about your safe arrival because you had perfect confidence in the captain. You knew that the Cunard or the French line would not risk their ship in incompetent hands. When you woke in the night with the ship rocking, you did not run up the bridge and tell the captain to be very careful, or to mind what he was about, or to ask him if he was sure that he knew the way. You stayed in your cabin and went to sleep again because you knew the captain was on the bridge, right? So do I trust in my God? And am I putting that faith in it? Because yes, it's easy to have that trust, and it's easy to say my relationship with God is working great when all the things are going great. But when the chips are down and it feels like life's hitting you hard and everything like that, that's when it's most crucial for a guy like me to put my trust and my absolute faith in God, and that he's going to see me through that. And yeah, for sure. Like I've had, certainly the way that I used to think before I got sober was very much in the victim type mentality. And I've got friends, that we have these kind of conversations with, where it's like, well, if God was all powerful and if this and that, like, why would he let this kind of stuff happen to people? Why would, good God-fearing Christians get their houses destroyed in a storm? Why would, somebody that belonged to the Catholic Church as a child get horrible things done to them? Me personally, like, I've lived through some very, my sister and myself both as children went through some pretty traumatic stuff, certainly stuff that on a later episode, if we really want to get raw and real about trauma and how it affects our lives and the ruining thread, like, we can really open up that can of worms. But to me, I used to use that as an excuse of like, oh, well, God didn't care, God didn't care what happened to me, and that, like I said, that's that victim mentality showing through, right? But like, because I have trust, because I have faith, I was able to come out on the other side of that. I survived those ordeals, and I came out a stronger person because of it. Right. And I can use those experiences now to hopefully positively impact people around me and help enrich people's lives. But I can only do that if I've developed my relationship. I continually seek God out and seek to improve my spiritual condition, and again, put my trust in the fact that the captain's on the bridge, and no matter what is going on in my life or the life of those around me, I don't have to worry about trying to take control of the plane or the boat or the car or anything like that, because he's got me. So that's what I got. Thank you very much.
We can each just play the role that God assigns us, and I think that's one of the truest essence of being spiritually fit and having that trust is like, I have a pretty accurate self-appraisal, and I know like what my role is today, right? Being a father, being a husband, being, my job in our recovery cert, you know what I mean? Like, I know exactly what my role is today. And that in and of itself is very peaceful and can help be content, because I have a clear path of where I need to go. So any parting thoughts from anyone? What book was that from, Greg? Do you remember?
It does not say. I'm going to have to look that one up, because it doesn't.
Because you're right. A lot of those readings from around the year are pulled from different other books.
I know there's a bunch
some of them aren't, but yes, a lot of them are. And the one that Power Through Constructive Thinking is another one.
Yeah, right.
He gets down some rabbit holes, man. There's some pretty cool rabbit holes with stuff. So, yeah. Anybody else? Anything else? Parting thoughts? Closing thoughts? Okay, Bill, good luck with moving and stuff tomorrow. Glad you were here tonight, buddy. I love you guys, and good show tonight. Shout out to our listeners. Please like, follow, and share on all socials at Trudge Report Pod. Email us, trudgereportpod@yahoo.com. Send mailbag requests, topics, questions, comments to any of these handles. Remember, we are all here if anyone wants to talk about recovery and our experiences, or if you are struggling with some form of addiction. Thank you again to Janine and Stella Mix Podcast Management. Good night, God bless, and may you trudge the road of happy destiny. We will see you all next week.